Good morning. Thank you for joining me today. I'm going to make a homemade pie today, and I'm going to use my niece Kelly's recipe for the crust. I haven't made this, but I ate with her a few weeks ago and her crust was absolutely delicious. So this is the recipe she sent me. 2 cups of all-purpose flour and a teaspoon of salt, and mix it all together, and that's what I've done already. Then you take 3/4 cup of butter flavored Crisco and put that in here, and we're just going to take a pastry cutter and just mix that in with the pastry cutter. And you don't want to use your hands any more than you have to. Now I'm telling you what I've heard, because I'm real good at buying pie crust already pre-made, but Kelly's was so good and Harold loved it. The pie that she made was it was called a 3-cherry pie, and she said you can only make it when the cherries are in. And she was so glad we ate with her during that time. And now her crust was, she had done the top part like a lattice. But this is going to be an apple pie that I'm going to make, and I will just use a solid crust. You see, that is very fine. You just want to make sure all that Crisco is incorporated in there. And then Kelly said you kind of make a whale, is what she said. And then she told me, she said, Aunt Sue, I used to use water, ice water, but I started using milk, and it's ice milk. She put her milk, and her recipe called for 8 to 10 tablespoons, and I have mixed, I did 10. So I'm going to put just part of it in there and see, but I think I'm going to need it all. But you just, you know, you want to form a ball. Yeah, I need the rest. I can tell. I don't need that ice cube though. But everybody that makes a lot of pies tell me that it's important to use the ice water, or in this case, ice cold milk. So that's what I'm doing. And I think, let me get just a tad more milk. Okay. So that was probably about another good tablespoon. And then Kelly said, when it looks like that, you're going to get your hands in it. And she said you're only going to want to work it 4 or 5 times. Knead it 4 or 5 times, because it'll be tough the more that you work it. So let me tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to make it kind of in a ball, and then I'm going to cut that in half, because this makes 2 crusts. the top and the bottom. Now, I learned this next trick from Miss Annie's mama. She said, first thing she does is she takes a new plastic bag and she will cut the ends off and then cut down one side, and she's going to put this there, and the reason she does that is so it won't stick. Then she just took her rolling pin and she rolled it out, and she says you have to pick it up when it gets wrinkles in the bag. But you know, I tried making real pie crust, and I just had to keep adding flour because it would stick. And this keeps you from having to add more flour. So that's what I'm doing. And it sure doesn't stick. That makes it so nice. I'm not sure the size I'm gonna need. I believe it needs to come over this way just a little bit. All right, I'm gonna get my pie plate. And let me see, I think I might need a little bit more. Okay, let's see. And the thing about this is I can roll it, pick it up, put it in the center. Oh yeah, this did, it worked. Now, if you can see, if I just needed a little bit more in places, I'm going to pinch off some, because this is going to be the bottom crust, and it won't matter so much if it is not as pretty on the bottom. But I think that just is going to be fine. And I want it along the edges because I want to be able to, when I put the top crust on, I want it to stick to that, to this crust. But anyway, I'm going to get my apples and all ready, and I'll come right back and show you how we're going to do that. Okay, I'm using a recipe from Miss Annie's cookbook. It's her mom's amazing apple pie. And I took 6 Granny Smith apples and I sliced them very thin. And now I'm going to mix a 1/2 cup of white sugar, a 1/2 cup of brown sugar, a 1.5 teaspoons of ground cinnamon, and a 1/2 teaspoon of nutmeg together. And a 1/3 cup of all-purpose flour. Now that is because as the apples cook, they're going to be juicy, and that will thicken the juice in the pie. Now what I'm doing right now is just mixing that together, and It's a brown sugar. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is pour this over my apples. And Miss Annie's mom says that she likes to just shake it around. But you want all of your apples to be covered with that wonderful cinnamon, flour, nutmeg. All right. This is the pie shell. You know, I told you that I used my niece's recipe, which is very similar to Miss Annie's mom's, but if you want to use her mom's, her recipe is in her cookbook also. Now, I'm going to just dump these apples in. And I'm going to fix it to where they're going to pile up, but put them right there. Now you take 2 tablespoons of cold butter, and I'm going to slice it very thinly and just put it around. I think I'm going to do it on here because my hands are warm and it'll melt. Okay. Do it. Fell over, so there'll be a few more. Now I have, while the video was off, I rolled out my other pie crust, and I went ahead and I put the slits in the crust because it needs to vent when it's cooking. I love this plastic bag trick. Miss Annie's mom, where I had, it sure did make it easier to roll out without sticking to my rolling pin. Let's see. Okay. Oh yeah, look at there. Isn't that pretty? First thing that I want to do is make sure that it goes over the top of my pan. It does. Now I'm not one to say that I can do a pretty pie crust, but if it tastes good, that's going to be the main thing. I'm just glad to know that this is an easy way to make a pie crust. Okay. Now, this is one thing that she did. She took her knife and she just went along the edge where it was hanging over and cut that off. Now y'all, if I can do a pie crust, I know that you can do it. There's a little hole right here, and you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna fill it with that little thing, and I wanted these slits though. Let me show you what I'm gonna do. This is kind of crazy. I don't know if you can see. It may work and it may not. See if I can make a little heart. Not really. Almost. Okay, I'm gonna put that heart right there over it. Now, let me get me just a little bit of sugar, because Miss Annie's mama did this. She said her mama would always sprinkle a little sugar on top, that it just made it better. So, we're gonna do it too. Now, I'm gonna cook this pie for 55 minutes on 350 degrees. And then I'm going to turn the stove off and leave it in the oven for 30 more minutes, because that's what Miss Annie's mom did. So when it comes out, I'll be back. Okay, the pie baked for 55 minutes. I turned the stove off, but left it in for 30 more minutes. Then I took it out and I've let it cool for probably about 45 minutes. It's still hot, but that's what it looks like. That's my little heart that I had cut out when it had a hole right there. Now, like I say, it's still pretty warm, so I don't know how this is gonna do when I cut it, but I'm gonna try. It's flaky, that's for sure. Well, I don't know. I don't have a pie, anything that can take the pie out, so I got to get me one. This spatula is too wide, but I'm gonna try. Oh goodness. Pulled out a little bit too much, but it smells delicious. Delicious. I'm gonna tell you, the crust is very, very good. Like I said, this apple pie recipe is in Miss Annie's cookbook, and it's called Mom's Amazing Apple Pie on page 60 of Miss Annie's. If you don't have her cookbook, you need to go to her website, missannieshomeandkitchen.com, and order you one. But y'all, I thank you so much for following me. I thank you for liking my pages, and remember, if you want to keep seeing the videos, some of you say it's good to see me back, but I haven't stopped. You have to comment in order for it to come to the top of your sites, what I've heard. But anyway, I just want to tell you I love you. Be salt and light wherever you go. Jesus loves you, and He wants us to be a light in this dark world. Thank you again, and I'll be back soon.